guys, welcome back to the United View, and we've got a brand new show for you here. I know you're probably thinking, what's going on? Why is Mina here? Why is Owen here? We've got a new show called The Loan View. Yeah, it kind of says it all in the title. We're going to view the loan players that are out right now but are contracted under Manchester United. And there's quite a few of them, some playing in different leagues, some are playing out in Europe and some are playing here in England. So without further ado, let's just get straight into it because I think we've got quite a few people to discuss. And the first one we're going to discuss is Amad Diallo, the 20-year-old Ivorian Coast international player that's currently on loan at Sunderland. He's got 14 appearances, 3 goals, 1 assist. And I know that probably doesn't scream to you guys, wow. But I've been really impressed with him, and I'm going to actually tell you guys why I've been impressed with him. Because under Manchester United, he's not really had the opportunity of game time. He came in summer 2020, has had about 9 appearances, 1 goal, and just struggled to find a stride in the squad. At Sunderland and under the manager of Tony Mejbri, he's actually doing quite well, where the manager's been praising him. He's even got his own chant from the Sunderland fans. He's got his own chant. I can't remember what it was. It's like a song, but they've turned it into Amad Diallo, basically.
Yeah, do you know what it is with Amad as well? Is people forget, to your point, that when he was signed by Manchester United in that crazy window of 2020, the one that's going around on social media so much at the moment, the screen grab of it, was it transfermarket.com? They're going, all of these signings, Donny, Amad, Facundo, Cavani as well. It was a bizarre window. But what people forget is when we signed him from Atalanta, I think he'd maybe played like once or twice at senior level. All of his football was under 21, under 23. So we were never getting the complete player. And like he says it right there, he's 20. You know, Manchester United is always a difficult club to come to at such a young age anyway. So I'm really excited by this loan move. I mean, you're probably going to bring it up in a second, but he was making the rounds on social media the other day for his unbelievable goal he scored against Birmingham. It was fantastic. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, no, I was watching the game because I was watching another Loanee, but we're going to get into him a bit more later on. But for me, I was more impressed about what the manager had to say about him, because obviously he's been criticised for his lack of physicality. He's a small guy. He's not that tall. He's not that big. But Tony Mejbri has actually said in his last 3 to 4 games, Amad Diallo has had the highest numbers in distance covered, sprint distance and intensity runs in the squad. And that goal that he scored was a phenomenal goal, great goal. And he also had an assist that game. And I think the manager is very, very fond of him. There's no doubt, I think, from the manager's perspective, and even probably from United's perspective, that this kid is talented. He's got ability. I mean, why else would we go and buy a 17, 18-year-old? Absolutely. For 39 million fee. That's the total fee. Obviously, the fee that we paid plus add-ons was up to 39 million. But to pay that in that summer transfer window, I don't know if we were just desperate or if he's really got some serious potential. But the interesting thing for me is, you know, he plays in the right wing in the cam position, and thinking of how he would come back to Manchester United. Is this something that we could utilise? Because he has the ability right now, he's showing it at Sunderland, that he can play in 2 positions.
I think, like you mentioned it, the right wing, because how often recently have we spoke? We've seen that Anthony goes out the squad, and Anthony's the priority on the right wing. Even if Amad comes back next season, Anthony's a priority. You don't buy someone for 80 million and him not be the priority. But we have seen, if Anthony's not available, which is going to be an incident next season, surely, you know, suspension, illness, whatever, injury, Amad could be a useful backup to that. He's still young though, so you do have to weigh up, and this is kind of the case for a lot of these loanees, isn't it? Bring him back and be backup, or should they be playing games and developing more? Certainly someone like Amad really needed it, because like you said, it's just the physicality of English football, physicality of men's football in general. And like you said, he's a slight guy, he's quick, but he's shown what he can do. And actually in reality, and this will kind of be similar, I suppose, with a lot of these players that we get into, that the assists and goals aren't necessarily what's totally important. It's the game time, it's the experience. So I do think there's a player in there. I will say, like you said, I saw the goal, and obviously you can just see goals. You don't see the most important stuff, to your point, the distance travelled, the work rate. I think this is going to be a fruitful loan move for him.
I could be controversial, but obviously the right-hand side, you know, that's Anthony's place. And he's probably not going to give that up. The battle for it will really be, I think, between Amad and Elanga. And I think when you come to technical ability and just all-around talent, I personally think Amad beats Elanga. But Elanga just seems to have gotten into the squad more. Last season, for example, when Elanga came up and was suddenly the star youngster that was playing. Ahmad was not even getting into matchday squads.
No.
He wasn't, and he didn't go out on a loan move. He was obviously sitting on our bench, and I really think this time at Sunderland is really developing him, but also giving him the opportunity. For example, when Dean Henderson was on loan at Sheffield United, that was an opportunity that he wasn't going to get, i.e. playing time.
Yeah.
And he really needed it. And I think someone like Ahmad, who can play in 2 positions, I think that would come very useful for Manchester United, because we've got Bruno Fernandez in that little cam 10 role. We've got Van der Beek, who might play back up to there, but to have another option, I know Van der Beek maybe not, but to have another option where he can alternate between 2 positions, I think is great. Obviously, with the season taking a break for the World Cup, we can only just wait to see how the rest of the season pans out for Ahmad. But so far, the last 2.5 months, 3 months, has been a very impressive spell. And it's not just me. I've been following him actually quite closely, just because I'm a fan of him and I like him. But also the Sunderland fan base and the manager. I think when you've got the managers backing and you've won over the fans, one thing I would say to the fans is don't fall in love with a lone player. Take him back.
Exactly. And look, Sunderland's a big club as well. Big club, North East. They love their football. Sunderland have had hard times over the last few years, but still big club stadium, like big stadium, not exactly the same as playing at Manchester United. But as far as loan moves go there's quite a few big clubs now in the Championship, but certainly Sunderland's a great place to be. So really interested to see his progression.
Yeah, so am I. Keep it up, Ahmad. And next, we got none other than Ethan Laird.
I'm excited about this one.
Ethan Laird.
Yeah.
He's an impressive kid. 21 years old, playing at right back, 16 appearances, 2 assists, 1 goal at QPR this season on loan. Now, this is not his first loan spell.
Yes.
This is not his first loan spell, which kind of it intrigues me a little bit for someone to be out on loan consistently and still struggle to break into their team's first team. This is his 4th loan spell. He's been at MK Dons, Swansea, Bournemouth, now QPR. And again, similar to Ahmad, manager, fans love him.
Yeah.
I've been watching a few QPR games actually this season, and I'm really intrigued by the way he gets up and down the pitch. And my question to you really is, do you think we could do with Ethan Laird back right now? Because United are going to go into the market apparently for a right back. What does that mean for him? I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts, especially with Diallo showing us that he's literally unstoppable.
Hell yes, we could do with him back. I've been saying that. Bring him back in January. Honestly, he played against Rayo Vallecano in pre-season, that last game at Old Trafford, and he was actually really, really good that day. And to the point where you go, actually, maybe we could do with him. And the reason I say we could bring him back and do with him now is because it's clear, that with the right back situation at United, Ten Hag likes Diallo. Wan-Bissaka, no. Even to the point of he'll play Malacia instead at right back. And Malacia did okay against Fulham at the weekend at right back, but he's still a left back by trade. He's a left-footed player. And I think if Laird came back, because this is going back to, again, weighing it up, he'd come back as a backup, he wouldn't get the amount of games clearly he's getting at QPR, but he would get games. He would get games, I believe, anyway at United, because Diallo can't play every single game. At the time of recording, we're still in all of these cup competitions. We're still in the Carabao Cup. He's not going to play that Europa League game against Barcelona if we get through. But he's still got FA Cup. Look, when we come back from the World Cup, we've got so many games in such a short period of time. We come back even before the Premier League season gets back up and underway. I think, isn't it the Carabao Cup's first?
Yeah.
Hypothetically, if he was at United, he'd probably play that game, realistically.
Yeah.
So I would like to bring him back in January, and that's probably unlikely because it is being somewhat reactionary and kind of short-term, visionist, I suppose, because in reality, like you said, he is doing well at QPR. He is getting game time. You speak to the QPR fans, they like him. Even getting a couple of assists and a goal ain't bad,
It's not
So,
bad at all.
I really like him. I don't know what his long-term future looks like at United, because to your point, I do think in the summer, probably are going to look at a right back, and if that is the case, then you would think minimum he probably goes out on loan next season. But I've been impressed with what I've seen. What do you think? Should we bring him back?
I'm intrigued about it because I like him, quality player. I think defensively he has a bit to learn. He's not, but attacking is what a lot of people look at for fullbacks nowadays for some reason. And I think going forward, he's shown such tremendous ability, especially at QPR. I was watching him the other day against West Brom.
Yeah.
He was just causing problems going forward here. I think he ended up getting subbed off that game, but he was solid. For me, he was solid. And he's had a few man of the match performances. Now, my question to be honest, for him and just our academy loanees in general, he's he's one of the few players right now that's on loan that's actually come through the academy from the age of 10. Ahmad we brought, Facundo I think we brought as well. He's come through the academy from a young age, and I'm just wondering if he looks at other players that have been in similar situations, i.e. come through the academy and struggled to get into the first team, e.g. Gomez, who ended up leaving Manchester United. Does he look at the players now, Shola, Iqbal, that are not really getting game time? Obviously, we don't know what Ten Hag's plan is with the academy kids. We know that he's been very strict and very, very like straight pathed in terms of, you know, you get an opportunity because you deserve it, not because you're an academy kid. But does he? I'm thinking maybe Ethan looks at the opportunities he's getting at QPR and says, you know what, I wouldn't mind staying here. Maybe.
I mean, I think it kind of depends on luck a bit as well, doesn't it? Because you do look at certain positions with academy players coming through. It kind of depends on the moment. If there happens to be a shortage of players, which is kind of the case in his instance in that position, the manager might not want to turn to the academy players. He might think, I've got no choice. I've got to do it. It's almost like the Rashford situation, isn't it? When he made his debut, when you just look at, we've got no strikers, I'm going to have to dip into the academy, and it can work or it doesn't work. You get a Rashford or you get a Makeda. That's kind of how it works out. So, yeah, it's a difficult one, but I think he's definitely one to watch.
Yeah, I definitely think he's got the ability to be a backup right-back option for Ten Hag if he wanted to. But in terms of looking at it from his perspective, I think he'd look at two things. A, United are rumoured to be looking for a right-back. And B, just the academy kids that are not getting into the first team at the moment. But there's no doubt right now that he's a phenomenal right-back, especially at a championship level. So I think if he can solidify, I guess, his experience in the championship, that would definitely help, because I think in the past when he was out on loan, he wasn't getting regular 90 minutes consistently. He was making appearances for, you know, MK Dons, Swansea, etc., but he just wasn't getting the consistent game time. Now I think he's been in a majority of their actual starting lineups. He's been a very regular player for them. So McBeal, the manager, he depends on him.
Yeah.
And if your manager can depend on you at a championship level, obviously the difference between Premier League and Championship is there's a big difference. But if you've got that backing and the fans love you, there's no doubt that I think he could do good at Manchester United. And on to the next one is the oldest one out of all our Loanee players. I don't want to be an ageist, because I'm not an ageist.
Forgotten man.
He's a forgotten man. I remember when we actually first brought him, and he was brought in obviously for his left foot. His phenomenal left foot is the one and only Alex Telles, who's currently on loan at Sevilla, who's actually playing regular football time, and it's interesting to me because he's obviously a left back, but he's been playing at left mid for Sevilla in the Champions League and La Liga. He played there against, I think it was Man City, in the Champions League, which I just found very interesting. And he's one of the two loanees right now that has been called up to Qatar for the World Cup in Doha. So congratulations to him. But I'm not sure how this loan spell is going for him. Because he's playing 3 assists. He's getting game time, and I think he's also unsure about his position at Manchester United, simply because of the fact that we've brought a backup left back. We've brought Tyrell Malacia, Luke Shaw and him are really battling for that spot, and I think then whoever becomes first left back option will be the second. The other person will be backup. And I don't think he wants to be the third option. No. Who would want to be the third option? I'm not too sure.
I think that there are two types of loans, isn't there? There's one loan which is like an Ethan Laird, like a Diallo, or the players
Diallo.
Literally exactly, where they're sent out because they're young, they develop, and you can come back, see how much you've developed, see how much you've grown, and we'll play it by ear. This is an instance of a loan of, we wanted to get you off the books. You know, you wanted to play games, go out on loan, but in reality, it's you're not really going to come back. Or if you do come back, it's to go back out once again. You're putting yourself out there, essentially. I can't recall, you might be able to correct me here, if there was like an option on this loan.
I can't recall.
But either way, it'll be a case of if it's going well, which he's getting game time, there's a possibility for him to move at the end of it, I would suggest. And he's not a bad player.
No, he's
because,
not.
You know, Sevilla are a decent side. Like you said, he's going to the World Cup in a Brazil squad that is packed with talent.
Packed with talent, but the
left back.
The fullbacks are not
Maybe that's why.
that packed.
Maybe that's why. But yeah, I think this is one of those loans whereby United, Ten Hag had made the decision on their left back position. They wanted to go younger. They wanted to go with faster, they wanted to go more direct, more energy, which is why they brought in Malacia, which is what Shaw has also shown this season too. So Telles didn't fit into that, but he does have pedigree because he has played at Porto and he, like you said, he's gone on set pieces. So I just don't see him really having a future at United. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the season this gets made permanent, or it's a case of putting yourself out there to get a future move. Who knows where he could end up? But yeah, again, it goes back to that previous window, doesn't it?
That's what I was just about to say to you. It's the previous window, the 2020 window. 2 of our players from that window are now on loan. One is just about getting playing time in Donny van der Beek, and Facundo Pellistri, I don't know.
Possibly going in January.
Possibly. His agent is saying that he's looking at options for him in January, and Cavani has now left. So that is probably a horrible transfer window that we've had. But, you know, it is what it is. In regards to Alex Telles, obviously, I think age plays a part in it because with, you know, in the instance of Malacia coming in, I do think, obviously, like you said, Ten Hag is going for a younger fullback option. 29 going on to 30 as a fullback. It's not old, but if you want longevity in your squad and it's the same fullback options for the foreseeable 3-4 years, I'm not sure I don't think this would be the option. And Alex Telles said it a few weeks ago in an interview where he said he's unsure about his future at Manchester United. He's happy at Sevilla. He's enjoying the playing time that he's getting, which of course, who wouldn't? But he's definitely unsure. So I think that if he's unsure and probably the manager has sent him out on loan, then I think that we'll probably end up parting ways with him. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if we could get anything for him.
Yeah, but it'll be interesting. I mean, we didn't sign him for all that much anyway in the first place, did we, I suppose? I mean, yeah, it's just one of those ones where a lot would have to change at United, I think, for him to come back. And when I say a lot, I mean regime change, you know, and that's not going to happen, I don't think. So
that's definitely
I think his days in that red shirt there might just be a little bit numbered.
He gave us a good Champions League goal, I think.
Great
it was.
goal,
so
Villarreal.
I'll keep that memory.
That
memory forever if it ends up not working out. But let's see, you never know. The next couple months, he might have a great World Cup, might come back with a medal, and that might change everything.
Oh, could you imagine?
Could you imagine? just because he won a World Cup.
Him his move away.
It could go 2 ways, but also he could have a good run for the next couple of months with Sevilla and end up finding his home there. So fingers crossed that works out for him. And the next is none other than my favourite out of all of them, just because of his entertainment that he gives us on the pitch, is Eric Bailly, the second oldest player that we've currently got on loan at the age of 28. Now, I'm just going to go into, I don't want to start with the bad stuff, but it's kind of like, you sometimes you can't really avoid it because he's made 9 appearances this season for Marseille. He's currently on loan at Marseille in the French city. And that is the lowest number of appearances out of all of the loanees currently, as of recording today. And he's missed games simply because he's been injured. He's missed 6 games this season, including the last 4 games because of injury. And it just seems like a repeated story for him because at Manchester United, he missed 103 games because of injury across a 5-year span. And I feel bad for the way that it's worked out for him at Manchester United because when he's been fit, he's been a great backup option.
Absolutely. When he's played,
we've been able to count on him to come on. But it's just the inability to keep fit and stuff like that. I can't be too harsh on him because that is out of your control. The way your body works sometimes is just, I think at this instance, is just down to bad luck at this point when he's always getting injured. An interesting stat, in 12 league games for Marseille, he's only started 2. He's only had 2 full 90 minutes.
Wow.
The other 2 he was subbed on. The rest he was either injured or an unused substitution. And for me, this brings back to the point, obviously, of injury, but also being able to be relied upon. His time at Manchester United hasn't worked out. Obviously, he's given us some great performances. I remember him doing a spinaroo on the floor one time, which was pure entertainment. But I think if we were able to count on him, I don't think he would have been on loan right now.
Yeah, I think that the Bailly thing, and look, I'm watching all of the games in League, but I did see when they played Spurs, and he played 4 minutes, I think it was, and he was subbed off through injury. And I think I did a show, I can't remember what it was, it might have been a full view afterwards. And it was, you're reveling in it, the fact he's injured. And it wasn't that, it was more just a case of, like you said, it's the familiar story with him. I believe his loan move is if they qualify for the Champions League, it's made permanent. I think it's a mandatory, gets made permanent if they qualify for the Champions League. It just, again, it's a familiar story with Eric Bailly, and there is no doubting his talent. Every time he played for Manchester United, you would always go, wow, what a player. He had a great pre-season for United.
He did. I remember him running the ball from our box all the way up to the other side of the pitch. I remember thinking, wow, okay,
absolutely. Man. It was great, but my opinion on him never changed because of that. There was some pushback at the time going, is Eric Bailly then he's going to be changed then Eric Ten Hag? And it was a case of you can overlook bad form over a year, but if you look at your entire United career that's been plagued with injuries over and over and over and over and over again, and the same situation is what it is now. We have thrived this season in defence of people like Varane, who ironically is out injured, but he's going to make the World Cup. But Varane and Martinez have having some consistency at centre-back, and that's just what you don't get. I know he did an interview and he said that he felt like the English players or the British players were getting biased at Manchester United. And to an extent, he's right. He is right. But at the same time, I think it's fair to also say, but if you were more consistent, you'd play more games. When consistency, I mean physically. If you were physically more consistent, you would play more games. So a bit like the Tellez one, I don't know what his future really looks like at United. I'm not sure if there's a way back for him. Again, it's dependent on Marseille's form, I suppose, as well. If they qualify for the Champions League, he'd get made permanent. And I think a lot of people, when he did go out on loan, wanted to see it work. Because you just, at the end of the day, you do want to see him play, because he is a good player. But ultimately, it's just the injuries, which is a shame because he was Jose's first signing, I believe, all the way back in 2016. And
Jose, he hasn't always been wrong on his signings. Obviously, he brought Diogo Diallo as well, who he said this was a wonder kid from Porto, and now he's showing us why. But with Eric Bailly, I think the interview that he did, I did have sympathy for him because I agreed. And it's difficult, I guess, to be called upon twice a year and they expect you, and you're expected to be fit consistently. And I remember it was a game that he came on as a sub that he ended up getting injured, and I thought, okay, this has to come end of the road, it has to come to an end sometime. And he's, like you said, he's got talent. He's been good for Marseille in the 2 games that I've watched where he played a full 90.
Same story for United though, isn't it?
He's been good, but it's similar with how it's been at Manchester United, and I do think, because he plays for Ivory Coast, he will always get a call up because he plays in the Premier League and at the moment French League, but he will always get a call up, and even then they've been unable to rely on him as well. He pulled out of AFCON with an injury earlier in the year as well, so hopefully his loan spell continues in a positive way, especially like with the World Cup break, rehabilitation and everything. He's currently out injured right now, so he's not playing. So hopefully he can use the next 2 months or so to get back fit, because the French League goes back in January. I think it's mid-January. So hopefully that works out for him. But do you think we can make money off him if we sell him? I think there's still money to be made by selling Eric Bailly. It's not going to be a lot, because I think any club will look at him and see his injury record and it be a gamble. Not a case that he's not going to fail a medical or anything like that, but at the same time, again, it's just reliability, and it is a shame because realistically he should be a £40 million defender, but because of his injuries, because of his reliability, and I guess because of his age, he wouldn't be. I would suspect you get maybe 10-15 million for Eric Bailly, something like that. Max. Anything more than that would be generous. So hopefully the board could probably, figure something out. And the next person on that list is, how do you think you say his first name?
Hannibal.
It's not Hannibal, guys.
Hannibal.
Everyone's been saying it wrong. Apparently, it's Hannibal. And
Mejbri. I was going to say, I'm definitely going to get that last bit wrong.
Mejbri, the one and only Hannibal Mejbri. People only talk about him because of his hairstyle, but he's given us a lot more to talk about on his loan spell right now at Birmingham City. 19-year-old, he's actually one of the youngest loanees that are currently out, and he plays across 2 roles for Birmingham City. He's playing in the central midfield and attacking midfield, 15 appearances, 2 assists, and he's picked up 4 yellow cards. And I'm mentioning the yellow cards because the first thing that I always notice about him when he plays is just his aggression and his temperament. And I remember watching him the other day thinking he picked up a yellow, and I was certain he was going to get sent off. Because he did 2 silly fouls, and he was lucky actually to not get sent off, and then he shortly got subbed off afterwards. Some fans like that. I think when he came on for United against Liverpool and he just got straight stuck in, got booked straight away. Everyone was like, we need a bit of that. But I do think there has to be a level of control around that temperament and that aggression. But under Birmingham, he's been pretty phenomenal. He's actually, congratulations to him, because he's got a call up to Qatar as well. Sorry, Qatar, not Qatar. he's got a call up to Qatar as well with the Tunisian national team. And although he's come through our academy of recent, he came from Monaco in 2019, and 15 appearances and 8 times he's been in the starting lineup. It's showing that the manager can count on him. He said he's got nothing but positive words to say about Hannibal. He's always covering a lot of ground, a lot of distance. He's a tireless runner. Yeah. That's what he was described as. And he has great work ethic. And I think at that age, to have a manager praising you for your work ethic, when sometimes people look at academy kids as these kids who think that they're better than what they are and whatnot. I really think that's good. And his ability to play across 2 positions can give us some sort of depth. I think if he was to come back Manchester United, obviously, when I look at the academy kids that have gone out on loan in the past, and just generally just the academy players, especially in midfield, we don't seem to bring any through the academy. Zidane Iqbal's currently sitting on our bench. Ghana left. Gomez left. So it's interesting to see how this one would pan out. But what do you think of Hannibal? Do you think he would add that quality and depth that we need?
I mean, I do have reservations about quality, maybe. He might be one of these youngsters that goes out on loan and maybe that is his level. Maybe his level is a lower league, Premier League sort of player. I do, to your point, like his aggression. I do like his tenacity. I do like when he came against Liverpool, he kicked someone because we were doing nothing in that game anyway.
Against Liverpool, I don't mind.
Exactly, I do like that. I think he might have to curve that a little bit because to your point, he probably will get in trouble with that. I think he's okay, but I do have reservations about his quality when he comes back. There are a lot of good players in his position at Manchester United, and maybe another loan move or maybe just a move away might be in his future. You never know.
Yeah, I think Birmingham fan base love him. Obviously, they love the hair, they love the player. Manager loves him, but I do also sometimes think about obviously the quality that we have in these positions. Obviously, playing as a midfielder, whether it's centrally or more up forward, we've got the likes of Bruno Fernandez, we've got the likes of Eriksen, we've got Donny van der Beek, who's now getting some sort of playing time. And I do wonder, and I do look at Hannibal and just whether he would get into. I'm not saying that he couldn't get into the squad, but really and truly, I don't think he would, just simply because of the number of players that we have there already. And unless he has some ridiculous numbers like 20 assists and 15 goals in the Championship, I definitely don't see this being him ending up being integrated into the team. But wishing him all the best of luck at the World Cup. 2 of our loanees, I think we've got 16 altogether, 14 players and then 2 loanees going to the World Cup. And next is Alvaro Fernandez, another 19-year-old who's currently at Preston North, playing in the left-back position. Now, this is an interesting one because he's got 15 assists, obviously. He's got 2 assists, 15 appearances. He ain't got 15 assists, guys. Not 15 assists. But he's had an impressive start for Preston North. And I'm really going to get into the simple question. With Shaw, Malacia, maybe Tellez, do you think that Alvaro Fernandez will be able to be our third string left back?
I think another loan might be on the horizon for him next season. I think that competition is so strong, so fierce at the moment. Haven't watched a ton of him, but like you said, I look at his age, I look at the appearances he's getting. I think Preston's a good club. Of course, David Beckham went there when he went out on loan when he was a Manchester United player, so there's history. But I think that there's so much competition at left back. He might be worth going out on loan a couple more times. But you know, that's the point of these kind of moves, isn't it? To develop, to progress, to improve. And who knows what he can achieve in the future. I think if I was him, I would be looking at a left-back spot going, it's probably best I'm not at United right now. And I think this is exactly the place that he needs to be, get those game times. And then, you know, Luke Shaw, who knows what's going to happen with his future soon. In a couple of years' time, maybe Malacia takes over him and then Shaw's gone. And then maybe that is where Fernandez comes in. But I think that's several years off at this point.
I do think one thing with Fernandez is that he's so fast. He's such a quick guy. I watched one game for Preston North where he was getting up and down the pitch consistently, putting in balls with his left foot and his right foot, which I think would offer some sort of is something different for us. Obviously, I'm not sure how it will work out with Malacia, Shaw, maybe even Tellez. I do think another loan option would be better off for him. But I think at a team like Preston and just getting regular game time at this age is definitely a good opportunity.
Absolutely.
And last but definitely not least, I think he's the most spoken about loanee of ours. I think everybody speaks about Dean Henderson. I think people watch Nottingham Forest games just to compare him to David De Gea for what he has or hasn't done. Dean Henderson, 25. I don't need to introduce him because obviously everyone is familiar with him. 25 years old, goalkeeper. He's had 15 appearances this season, as of recording today. 30 conceded, 4 clean sheets, and this is his 6th loan spell since he's been at Manchester United. I'm going to just go straight into it. I don't think we need to discuss, his ability or what he can and can't do. But with David De Gea looking for a new contract at Manchester United on reduced terms, United rumoured to be looking for a new goalkeeper. We've been linked to quite a few, including Diogo Costa of Porto. Do you think, out of David De Gea and Dean Henderson, which one do you think would be the backup keeper, bearing in mind that Dean Henderson was not happy being a backup option last season?
I think Henderson's done. I think at Manchester United, I think his time there is over. I think that at this stage, he's been very open and very honest, and he's right to. He wants to be number one. He's 25. He needs to be a number one somewhere at this point in time. Backs his own ability. Don't have an issue with that. Have an issue of him coming out and saying, if I stayed at United, they'd want me to stay this, that, and the other. Okay, fine. Back yourself, back your own ability. But I just don't think he's got the quality to be a Manchester United goalkeeper, frankly. I think he's a good keeper. His distribution's good. I know there's the Henderson cultists that are on social media that will show all of these compilations of Henderson doing throws and all this kind of stuff and go, look, what great distribution. Ultimately, what he's been best remembered for this season is saving penalties, which he's done a couple of. Good. Yeah. He's in a difficult position at Forest because huge turnover of players, and they are newly promoted side. They're going to concede goals. He has conceded goals. I think some of the goals were absolutely avoidable from his perspective. I think sometimes he has issues with his positioning, which is an issue I had with him at Manchester United. I always go back to that game against Liverpool at Old Trafford during the pandemic where Mo Salah scored and his positioning was just way off. And it was huge alarm bells and red flags at the time because I just thought, that's an empty stadium. What happens when there's 78,000 people there? Had good moments at United as well. I think back to the Manchester derby, his distribution was good there. But I just don't think he's at that level of a Manchester United goalkeeper. I think his level is probably above Forest, in fairness to him. I think he's better than a lower league, lower table side. But I think that his days may be numbered.
Do you think he's had a fair chance at the number one shirt?
United, probably not.
Because I don't think he has. I think he's spent a lot of time, obviously, out on loan across 5 years, or 5 or 6 years. He's been out on loan, I think his time at United could be over, and I think he's one of the few players that we could actually make some money off selling. I wanted him to be sold this summer because I thought if he was sold, then maybe that would bring in some more opportunity for cash if we were to sell him. Obviously, it makes sense. He's out on loan right now, getting playing time. Other teams can see what he can and can't do. He's not got an England call up. Ramsdale and Pope has been called up ahead of him alongside Pickford. Yeah. But I do think he probably looks at the Manchester United situation, especially with his interview that he did.
And he blames United. He blames United and he blames Ole. He said so himself. And again, I sympathise with him. I sympathise with him for that because he was told you're going to be the number one. Unfortunately, he got COVID and he came out of the side, and that is one of those situations where in football stuff happens. And David De Gea, whilst we were awful last season, and he must have been sitting on the bench thinking, we're terrible, why can't I get back into the side? But De Gea was good for us last season. Even though we conceded so many goals, it could have been a lot more if it weren't for David De Gea. And I spoke about it earlier on with players about sometimes it comes down to luck and opportunity, and he's been a bit unlucky with having opportunities in the side. As I mentioned, I've got my reservations about his quality as a top level goalkeeper. He said in his interview that the manager would want him to stay, and I'm sure Ten Hag probably did want him to stay because he's a good backup. I think he thought if I move away, I'll be playing for England or get into the World Cup squad. But we've got good goalkeepers for England now. I just don't know if he's at that level for Manchester United. But I totally agree with your point. That was something I was actually quite disappointed with in the summer, was that could have sold him and made a bit of money. But ultimately, I think Forest did swallow up pretty much all of his wages, which is a positive coming out of that loan. But
they had a lot of money.
They got a lot of money. They spent it on a lot of players. I don't see what his future would look like at United. I know, to your point again, as a backup, he's probably...
I think he's better than a backup option. I don't think he's backup worthy. I don't think he's... If he was maybe 29, 30, I would understand him being a backup goalkeeper.
He's got to play.
But I do think he's a starting number one goalkeeper somewhere. At some club, just not Manchester United. Agreed. Maybe. Quick question on him. How much do you think we could get for him?
I think maybe 25 to 30 million. I think goalkeepers aren't that expensive usually, but... he's an English player, so that's the English tax always goes up. He's a homegrown United player, so they'll want to make some profit on him. And maybe 25, 30, depends on the market. The market's insane. Next year's probably going to be even worse. So we can make good money on him, certainly, and we're probably going to need it next summer.
Hope so, fingers crossed. Good luck to him with the rest of his season at Nottingham Forest. Loanee of the month. Now I'm thinking of a new concept for this show where after we break down each player, who is our Loanee of the month? And for me, this month or over the last few months, we've kind of just condensed it into one. It's Amad Diallo. He's had 3 goals, 1 assist in his last 5 games for Sunderland. That's 4 goals/assists in 5 games, which I think is great. And just for that reason, he's my Loanee of the month. We'll be doing this obviously once a month, so you guys can tune in. Make sure you comment below who you think your Loanee of the month is. Make sure you like, subscribe. Make sure you keep up with the United View family. And until next month, or after the World Cup, I guess, we're out.